Hello students, so welcome to Physical and Chemical Equilibrium, Theory Part 1. Disclaimer, the images used in our slide deck are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and owners of these images. If you are the owner of any of the images used in this deck and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@itk.ac.in and we shall remove the image. So the topic that we are going to cover today will be starting from the equilibrium state. So what is equilibrium state? First we will know what is equilibrium. Then we will study the types of equilibrium in which our focus will be on dynamic equilibrium. Then, on the basis of the process, it can be divided into two parts. So, equilibrium involving in the physical processes, which includes the Henry's law. Then we will study about the general characteristics of the equilibrium, and then we will study about the equilibrium involving the chemical processes. After that, there is a more subdivision, which is of types of chemical equilibrium. Then we will study the law of chemical equilibrium. This is very important, and equilibrium constant, which is just a outcome of this law of a chemical equilibrium and its significance. After that, we will see characteristics of this equilibrium constant, then its relation with the thermodynamics. So we will study a relation between this delta G naught and chemical equilibrium on delta G. At last, we will study the factors that affect the equilibrium, which is totally an outcome of the Le-Chatelier principle, and its applications also in our day-to-day life. After that, at last, we will sum up this whole thing with a summary. So, what is equilibrium state? So, suppose chemical. If you talk about equilibrium, then we generally thought of it as the chemical equilibrium. But see, it is not about the chemical equilibrium. It can be about the physical changes also that we see around. So, for example, you have ice and water. Okay. Now, this ice and water are in equilibrium at 0 degrees Celsius and atmospheric pressure. Now, this is very important from your knowledge point of view, that you should remember that this 0 degree Celsius freezing point or the melting point of ice is considerable only at the atmospheric pressure. Now, at 0 degree Celsius, what happens? That both ice and water coexist and there is an equilibrium between these states. And what is this change that we are seeing? This is a physical change. Therefore, in this, the equilibrium that is involved, it is involved for the physical processes or physical equilibrium. Clear? Now, if I talk about the reversible reaction, then we know it very well that all of the physical reactions that are there, they all are reversible. Whereas some of the chemical reactions are also reversible. Okay. Suppose you are talking about the evaporation. When what happens in evaporation? That your liquid molecules are going to the vapor state and the vapor molecules are going to the liquid state. Now again, if you are taking a container and keeping liquid inside it and you are closing the lid, then what will happen? You will see that the droplets of water is being contained on the top of this lid. Okay, at the same time, some of the vapor is going back to the solution. So what you are seeing, that there is a continuous or there is a dynamic exchange of water and vapor inside the container. So this is also considered as the equilibrium state. And what happens in the equilibrium state is that once the equilibrium is reached, then there is a no concentration change. Okay, so concentration will not change, and every physical changes that you can observe will remain constant at the equilibrium state. Then, if we talk about some important features of the equilibrium state, they are: equilibrium is attained in a closed container. It cannot be exposed to the surrounding, or else the equilibrium will be very difficult to set up because surrounding is very varying at with time. Okay, and for that reason, it is very difficult to keep an equilibrium state with the surrounding. Then we have the second thing, that for equilibrium to happen, your rate of forward reaction means if the reaction is reversible, it can go in both ways. So it should be that the rate for the both ways should be same. Then in that case, what you will say, that the equilibrium is attached. That is your rate of forward reaction equals to rate of the backward reaction. And at last, the equilibrium concentration of reactants and products remain constant. We have seen this, that the concentration should be equal. So we have in a reaction we have two things, reactants and the products. So the concentration of both of these should be remain constant. Then what we will study in this whole equilibrium chapter will be your dynamic equilibrium, right? Why are we telling it dynamic equilibrium? Because when we see with our naked eyes a state of equilibrium, then we see that nothing is being changing, right? But that is not the case. Okay. So what happens, as I have told you earlier, that rate of backward and forward reactions are equal. Means the speed with which your reactant is going to the product and the speed with which your product is going to the reactant, both are same. So there is no net change in the concentration as a result of that. So there is a balance between this both rates, and that thing is called dynamic equilibrium. Means it is not that the reaction has stopped taking place; it is still happening, but it is happening in a way that the forward rate reaction and the backward rate reaction are same. Suppose we are taking an example of solid to liquid, okay, and liquid to solid. This sign is of equilibrium. It is showing that the reaction can go in both ways because it is a double-headed arrow in the opposite direction. Now, this is a physical equilibrium. So in this case, your solid will be going to liquid and your liquid will be coming back to solid. Similarly, it can be shown for water specifically. So water, the solid form of water is ice. It can go to liquid, and this all of this is happening at 1 atm pressure and 0 Kelvin. Again, the temperature needs to be specified and also your pressure. Both things are important to determine each of them. Now, next thing, we can apply the same equilibrium constant to the chemical part also. So chemical equilibrium, suppose we are taking the dissociation of N2O4. So in this we are getting 2 moles of NO2 and both are in the gaseous state. Now what will happen? That the dissociation of N2O4 and the association of NO2 to form N2O4 will be in equilibrium with each other. Okay, so the rate of formation, rate of dissociation equal to the rate of association, and that results in the equilibrium state. Now there is a role of catalyst in attaining this equilibrium state. So what does catalyst does? Catalyst changes the route of reaction. So there is a second route which is provided by this catalyst, which has a lower activation energy. So basically it requires less energy to form the product. As a result of that, now your rate of forward reaction and rate of backward reaction becomes almost equal, and then we can say that due to catalyst our equilibrium is reached quickly. Okay, so what does a catalyst does? It helps in reaching the equilibrium state quickly, and it enhances both the forward and backward reaction. Now, equilibrium involving physical processes. So first we will go to the physical processes. So if I talk about equilibrium, so equilibrium can be better understood in terms of physical processes. Why? Because chemical processes are something which you don't observe or which you are not very cautious about in your day-to-day life. But if I talk about the physical process, you see it everywhere. Okay, whether in your in the kitchen, you see it by cooking. In the atmosphere, you keep a ball of water, you will see it evaporate quickly, or you take your thermos, everything that you see around, that they are undergoing simultaneously physical and chemical changes. But due to the more visibility of physical changes, you will be able to study equilibrium in a much understandable way with the help of these physical processes. So this can be attended in two ways. Okay, in the following ways, not in the two ways, in the following ways. So first is the solid liquid equilibrium. So basically we are talking about the phase changes here. So solid can go to liquid and liquid can go to solid. So this is the type of equilibrium that can be established. The most common example would be the ice and water equilibrium. So in that case, what will happen if the equilibrium is attained in this kind of reaction? Then rate of melting of ice will be equal to rate of freezing of water. So that will lead to equilibrium. Similarly, if I talk about liquid gas equilibrium, then we can take the water going to water vapor and water vapor going to the water. So in this case, the rate of evaporation of water equal to rate of condensation of the water vapor. So this is also a case of equilibrium. Third, we have solid gas equilibrium. For that, we have taken the case of naphthalene. So naphthalene balls are being used in your say an antibacterial property. So it is used to keep your clothes safe and healthy. So they are kind of allergic to the insects and pesticides. So they are used for that. Now what happens, naphthalene has a very unique property that it goes from solid to vapor without changing to liquid. So most of the substances or the matter that you see around, they have a tendency to first go to liquid and then go to vapor. But due to this special property of this naphthalene, we can observe a third type of change, physical change, which is from solid to gas and from gas to solid. Again, This thing also can be under equilibrium if the rate of solidification from vapor to solid and the rate of vaporization from solid to vapor becomes equal. Now, let us talk about Henry's law. So, the Henry's law I have put here is basically an application of say your say this equilibrium only. Why is it so? Because when you apply pressure, so see what does Henry's law say? So suppose you have a liquid, right, and you want to dissolve that gas in that liquid. The most obvious example would be the CO2 that is dissolved in your soft drinks. So what it is done that it is high pressure is being applied on the gas so that the vapor pressure on the surface of liquid increases and the liquid dissolves the gas that is being put upon it. Okay, so this is a direct application of Henry's law. So now there is so at each pressure, so suppose you applied a pressure, now slowly what will happen, some of the gases will be going to the liquid and at last there will be an equilibrium for that pressure for which you have applied. Now you increase the pressure further, you will get a new equilibrium. So you are getting multiple equilibrium stages in each case, okay, in each pressure stage. And it is due to the Henry's law, because Henry's law says that the amount of say gas dissolved in a solvent is proportional to the pressure of the gas above the solvent. Clear? Now we will move to general characteristics of equilibrium involving. So we will be focusing on the physical processes. So what are the general characteristics of equilibrium involving physical processes? First is, at equilibrium, if we talk about the physical processes, then all the measurable properties remains constant. That is the volume, your pressure, your temperature, all of those are constant. Then, and it is attained only, so equilibrium is attained only when your system is a closed system. Means energy can be exchanged, but your mass cannot be exchanged. Until and unless it is not so, it is very difficult to attain a physical equilibrium because most of the masses can go into the atmosphere, right? Then third thing, equilibrium is dynamic in nature in case of physical equilibrium, right? So that is the opposing forces do not stop but take place simultaneously and with the same rate, due to which the change of the state from one form to another and back to that state becomes occurs at the same rate and we don't see any net change. Clear? Next, the physical equilibrium is characterized by constant value of one of its parameters such as melting point. Okay, so this physical equilibrium is characterized by a constant value, like we have this melting point, so it is something which is constant. Then we have the boiling point, so that is characterized using uh, a constant. Okay, so that constant is also defined at a certain value of condition. Like if you're talking about the melting point, then it is related to 1 atm pressure. Then and then only your water freezing point is 0 degrees Celsius. And similarly, for our 100 degrees Celsius as the boiling point, 1 atm should be the pressure. Okay. Next is, the magnitude of this parameter at any stage shows the extent of physical process up to which it has proceeded reaching equilibrium. Clear? Now we are moving to the chemical processes. Now if I talk about the chemical processes, then the rate of reversible reaction at which the concentration. So in this case, what we consider? We mainly consider the concentration. So if the concentration of reactants and products do not change with time, then it will be called as the what? It will be called as chemical equilibrium, and the rate of forward and backward reactions are same. The same thing is applied to here, but we are in chemical equilibrium. Here we are mainly focusing on this concentration of the reactants and the products. Now, how do we specify concentration? For that, we have a very popular concentration term, that is molarity. In this, we have called as active mass. It is basically the number of moles per liter. Okay, so it is called as molar concentration. Suppose this is our reaction that H2 and I2 are reacting to give us 2 moles of HI. Okay, and here also we have another reaction that PCl5 is dissociating to give PCl3 plus Cl2. Now in both cases, you can see that there can be a chance of equilibrium if your forward and backward rate of reaction are same. Similar things can be said for this reaction. Clear? Now moving on to types of chemical equilibrium. So first is a homogeneous equilibrium. So what is homogeneous equilibrium? So in this case, all the reactants and products are in the same phase. What is the meaning of this? say we have an example. So you can see that there are three reactants: nitrogen, hydrogen, and ammonia. Now this ammonia is the product, nitrogen and hydrogen are the reactant. Now all of these are in the same phase, that is a gaseous phase. So therefore we can say that it is a homogeneous equilibria. Similarly, if your acetic acid is reacting with alcohol and going under esterification to produce ester and water, then you can see that all of these are in the liquid state. So therefore it is also an example of homogeneous equilibria. Next is heterogeneous equilibria. So in a heterogeneous equilibria, reactants and products are in different phases. So this is important. They are in different phases. Okay. How can we identify it? So this is the example to identify it. Suppose we have calcium carbonate, so it is dissociating into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. Now calcium carbonate and calcium oxide are both solid, but the CO2 that is released it is in gaseous state. So your reactants and products all are not in the same phase. Two are in the solid phase and one is in the gaseous state. So it is an example of heterogeneous equilibria. Then again we have this dissociation of NH4HS, which gives us ammonia and H2S gas. So this is an example of solid, this is gas, and this is gas. So again your reactant is in solid, whereas your product are in gas. So this is not an example of homogeneous, but it is an example of heterogeneous equilibria. So this is a classification of chemical equilibrium type. Next we will move to laws of chemical equilibrium. So what is laws of chemical equilibrium? So according to this law, if you are taking at a given temperature, then we can say that the product of concentration of say product. So basically we are taking the product of concentration. This product means multiplication. So I would say that multiplication of concentration of the product, okay, reaction products, okay, then it is raised to the respective stoichiometric coefficient. So what are you doing is that you are taking product, you are raising it to the power which is equals to the stoichiometric coefficient in the balanced chemical equation. Okay, you are taking their product divided by the product of the concentration of the reactant. Okay, and reactant also are raised to their specific or their individual stoichiometric coefficient. Then the thing that you are getting is called as the what? Is called as the law of chemical equilibrium. Suppose you are having a reaction in which capital A is reacting with capital B to give capital C and capital D. Now in this case, your small a, small b, small c and small d are the stoichiometric coefficient. Clear? So what can we write? We can write that for the rate of forward reaction, RF, which is denoted by RF, so it is directly proportional to the concentration of reactant raised to the power which is equal to the stoichiometric coefficient. So we can write this as RF is equals to KF A raised to the power small a, capital A raised to the power small a, and concentration of capital B raised to the power small b. Now here it is being assumed that this reaction is elementary. I am telling this because you will face such type of things in your later on classes. So this is important to tell you. So we can say that rate of forward reaction equals to Kf multiplied by A raised to the power small a and capital B concentration raised to the power small b. Similarly, the rate of backward reaction can be written as Rb is directly proportional to concentration of capital C raised to the power small c multiplied by concentration of capital D raised to the power small d. Again, you put the proportionality constant, that is small kb, which is the rate constant for backward reaction, and then you get these two equations. Okay, clear? Now at equilibrium, what will happen? As I have said, the rate of forward reaction is equal to the rate of backward reaction. So we can write with that Kf, that is your rate constant for forward reaction, multiplied by concentration of reactant raised to the stoichiometric coefficient, which is this and this, is equals to the rate constant for the backward reaction multiplied by the concentration of product raised to the power, which is equals to the stoichiometric coefficient. Further, on just simplifying it, we can write K is equals to, the capital K is equals to Kf by Kb, which is this one, Kf by Kb is equals to concentration of product raised to the power, which is equals to the stoichiometric coefficient by concentration of reactant, which is again raised to the power, which is equals to the stoichiometric coefficient. So this is the equation that we got using the law of chemical equilibrium. Now here Kf, as I have told you, is the rate constant for forward reaction and Kb is the rate constant for backward reaction. Now this above equation is also called, or the expression is also called, the law of chemical equilibrium. Clear? Okay. Now if I am writing for the gaseous reaction, then it would be more significant if we use the pressure terms rather than the concentration term. So what are we writing? that Kp. So that Kp is saying that this is the equilibrium constant in terms of pressure. So I'm writing here Kp is equals to pressure of C. Again, this thing will be continued, that you will raise it to the power equal to the stoichiometric coefficient. So pressure of C raised to the power C, pressure of D raised to the power D, divided by the reactant, which is pressure of A raised to the power small a, and pressure of B raised to the power small b. So this is your uh, what? This is your law of chemical equilibrium for the gaseous phase. So you can use the concentration term also. There is no issue in it. But since gases are more about the pressure and also we are considering pressure for the gases. That is assumed to be more accurate. And where Kp is your what? Equilibrium constant in terms of partial pressure. And this was also your equilibrium constant, but in terms of concentration. Okay, no issues. Okay, moving on further. So, if you are talking about the equilibrium constant K, it can be expressed in three ways. So, what are those three ways? First is in terms of molar concentration, which we have seen, which is Kc. So, suppose you are writing it in terms of concentration, you will take concentration of C, concentration of D, the same reaction that we have considered by concentration of the product, and each raised to the power which is equal to the stoichiometric coefficient. Now, if I talk about the pressure, then we write it as Kp. For Kp, we write the pressure of the product raised to the power equals to the stoichiometric coefficient divided by pressure of the reactant, which is again raised to the power equals to the stoichiometric coefficient. So this is Kp. Then we have K chi, where chi is what? Chi is the mole fraction. So this is in terms of the mole fraction. We will write in the same way. We will just replace the concentration term with the mole fraction. So K chi will be equals to the mole fraction of capital C raised to the power small c, mole fraction of capital D raised to the power small d divided by mole fraction of A raised to the power small a multiplied by mole fraction of B raised to the power small b. So this is in terms of mole fraction. Is it clear to you? Okay. Moving on further. Now we will see the significance of equilibrium constant. So why is equilibrium constant designed? First of all, we can predict the extent of reaction. So suppose your Kc is greater than 10 to the power 3, then what you will say, that your product is being formed predominantly, your reaction is very good. Okay, this is the thing, that your product is forming predominantly. In other words, Kc is very large and reaction proceeds almost to the completion. Clear? Now, if your Kc is less than 10 to the power minus 3, in that case, your reactant is predominating, means your reaction has not being started. Okay, it has been proceeded hardly. Clear? It is not being started also almost. And when your Kc is between these three, then you can call that it is an appreciable amount of reactant that has been formed. So these are the three cases. Okay. So in this way, you can predict the extent of reaction using the equilibrium constant. So the same thing has been written here, that the equilibrium constant helps in predicting the direction in which the given reaction will proceed. For this purpose, we found out the reaction quotient. Now this is another say terminology which is very important. We will see the use of it. So it is basically defined as the molar concentration of reactant. Same, we are taking the same thing, but here the concentration of reactant that and the product that we take, we are not taking that concentration at equilibrium, but at any time where the equilibrium can be achieved or cannot be achieved. So in that case, your law of mass, if your law of mass action is applied, then it results in the reaction quotient and not the equilibrium constant. Okay, so what are we doing? We are applying the law of mass action to a case where it can be a case of equilibrium or cannot be a case of equilibrium. Then in that case, your constant is called as the reaction quotient. So what are we doing? We are taking the concentration of the product raised to the power equals to the stoichiometric coefficient divided by product concentration, which is raised to the power equals to the stoichiometric coefficient, and we are doing it at any stage. Clear? Now consider a general reaction, which is A plus B is giving us C plus D. So capital A is reacting with capital B to give us C and D, and where small a, B, C, D are the stoichiometric coefficient. Then QC, suppose it is defined for any situation where equilibrium is not been attained. Okay, means the change of concentration is been visible. So if you write the QC in this case, you can write also the QP in this case. Then what we will say, that if your QC is greater, means your QC is greater, what does that mean? That your reactant has been formed, been reacted extra, or you can say the product has been formed in large amount. Okay, so for that case, the reverse reaction will occur. Clear? So very easy to remember, that if your equilibrium constant is smaller than the QC, that means your product is formed in extra. Okay, because QC is dominating means this part is dominating, that is your product is dominating. So to bring back it to Kc, because at a given temperature Kc is defined, it cannot be changed. So the reaction will move in the reverse direction, in the direction of reactant or in the reverse direction. Again, second case, if your Qc is less than Kc, that is reaction quotient is less than the equilibrium constant, means your this thing is dominating. Okay, so the reaction will proceed in the further direction so that it can achieve the value of Kc. Third thing, if both of them are equal, then your equilibrium is attained. The reaction will not proceed in any way. It will be in equilibrium. Clear? So these three are very important points here. Next, we will talk about the relation between Kp, Kc and Kchi. So Kp and Kc relation is very famous. You must have heard it multiple times. Kp equal to Kc RT delta Ng. Okay? Or Kp equal to Kchi P delta Ng, where P is the pressure and T is the temperature. Okay? So R is a gas constant. Okay? T is the temperature in Kelvin. Remember this, T is the temperature in Kelvin. And delta Ng is what? Delta Ng is gaseous moles of product minus the gaseous mole of reactant. So basically it's a change of number of gaseous molecules throughout the reaction. So remember, this should be in gaseous and not in any other state. Now there are cases. So if your delta Ng is 0, then what does that mean? That your Kp will be equals to Kc, because this will be raised to the power 0, that is RT raised to the power 0 is 1. So Kp will be Kc in that case. If your delta Ng is positive, then what does that mean? If it is positive, then your Kp is greater. Very obvious from here. Okay, you can just analyze it by yourself. You will easily get this thing. Next, if your delta Ng is negative, then your Kc is greater. So remember these three. You don't need to remember, just remember this formula. Then you will get this three outcome very easily. Okay. Then we will define a very more unique term, because the concentration that we are considering is not that much appropriate. When you move to higher classes, your concentration will be replaced by this A, which is the activity. So what you have to do, instead of concentration, you have to take just the activity of the product by activity of the reactant to get the equilibrium constant, which is written as K. This is not the acid dissociation constant. This is dissociation constant. This is the equilibrium constant in terms of activity, that is A. Where A is what? A is activity coefficient multiplied by molality or molarity. So in our reaction that we do, in that case, your we consider that your solution is very dilute, and therefore activity coefficient is considered as 1. For that reason, we take activity equals to molarity and we directly use the concentration term. But this is not always the case. So a more appropriate thing would be that if we use the activity. But since to this class, your concentration is enough, so you can use this one. Okay. So this is just for your knowledge. So we can write activity is equals to gamma into m, where gamma is your activity coefficient and m can be your molality or molarity, and A is your activity. Clear? Further, we will talk about the characteristics of equilibrium constant. So if I talk about the characteristics of equilibrium constant, then equilibrium constant does not depend upon pressure, volume, concentration and catalyst. Very important term. Okay, very important thing here. You will see questions related to it multiple times. Remember, equilibrium constant is only dependent upon temperature and not upon anything else. Whether pressure, whether volume, whether concentration, whether catalyst, you take anything, equilibrium constant will not be changed. It will only be changed when you change the temperature. Now, it is independent of the reaction mechanism also. How can we say it? So whenever you act the catalyst, your reaction mechanism changes. But I have already told you that catalysts have no effect on the equilibrium constant. That means you can say that your reaction mechanism also has no effect on the equilibrium constant. So this is a very, very important point. So if your reaction is going through acid catalyzed way or through the base catalyzed way, your equilibrium constant will not be disturbed. Its value will be same. Clear? Now, it depends upon the stoichiometric coefficient. It's obvious. You are taking the power which is equal to the stoichiometric coefficient for those species. So that will depend. For example, we have this reaction of H2 reacting with I2. Both are in the gaseous state, which is giving us 2Hi, that is 2 moles of Hi. And in this case, your equilibrium constant is Kc1. Clear? Now what we do, we change the stoichiometric coefficient. We put half here. We put half here. We put half here. We multiply the whole equation by 1 by 2. Then in that case, your equilibrium constant will be changed. It will be root over Kc1. Means it will be now root over the previous one, your new equilibrium constant. Similarly, what you do if you reverse the reaction also, in that case also your what will change? Your equilibrium constant will change. In this case, what will happen? If you are reversing this equation, then your equilibrium constant will be reciprocal of the initial one, that is your Kc2. And Kc2 was what? It was the root over of Kc1. So we can write Kc3 equal to 1 by root under of Kc1. Okay, clear? Now we will talk about the characteristics of equilibrium constant. We have just seen a view of it. We will talk about it in more detail. Now, if a reaction is multiplied by n, then the reaction quotient become Kc raised to the power. Then your rate constant become Kc raised to the power n, or your equilibrium constant become Kc raised to the power n. Okay, so you are multiplying the whole equation by n, then your equilibrium constant is being raised to that same power. Second thing, if you're having a reaction P going to Q, and for that your equilibrium constant is K1, and R going to S, for that your equilibrium constant is K2, then if you add both of these equations, then your equilibrium constant will be multiplied. So remember this, if you are adding two chemical equations, then your equilibrium constant will be multiplied. If you are subtracting two equations, then your equilibrium constant will be divided. Now the one which is getting the negative charge will be taken as a reciprocal. Okay, very simple. Just use that the part that if you change the order, which you change the way of reaction, if you if you reverse the reaction, then the equilibrium constant become reciprocal. Now, for exothermic reaction, Kc decreases with increase in temperature. Now, I have told you that temperature is the only thing that can change the equilibrium constant. And how it can change? Let's see. So, if your reaction is exothermic, then your increase in temperature if will decrease the Kc. And if your reaction is endothermic, then your increase in temperature will increase the Kc also. It is obvious. It is very, very obvious. So, for reactions having zero or heat energy, temperature has no effect. Now, this is also very, very true. Okay, so if your reaction is say uh, having zero heat energy, it doesn't require any heat energy. So if you are taking an ideal case or a hypothetical case, this can happen. This can happen. Suppose you are saying that you are considering boiling at the boiling temperature, then you don't need to heat it further. You don't need to provide any further temperature. For that case, any temperature change will have no effect because you are fixing the temperature always. Okay, so anyway, so I would say that if you are having a reaction and if it is having a zero heat change, then your temperature has no effect. Clear? Next is we'll talk about the thermodynamic relation between this equilibrium and thermodynamics of delta G naught. Okay, so what is the delta G? It's called the Gibbs free energy, and it has set a standard thing to say whether the reaction is having your spontaneous process or not. Okay, so under standard condition we call this thing as delta G naught. How do we relate these three things? With the help of this equation, delta G equal to delta G naught plus 2.303 RT log Q, where Q is your reaction quotient, right? So this is a very popular equation, very useful in our exams. Now under equilibrium condition, what will happen? The number of moles of reactants and products will be same. So that means your Q will be equal to Kp equal to Kc equal to K. So this thing is good, okay? And at equilibrium, your delta G will be 0, okay? And your Q will be equals to K. That will make the equation delta G naught equal to 2 minus 2.303 RT log K. Just put here 0 and bring this delta G naught on this side and you will get this equation and put Q equal to K. Clear to you? Okay. Now, what is the significance of delta G naught? So, if your delta G naught is suppose less than 0 in the previous equation, then your K will be greater than 1 because log K is greater than 1. Means the reaction is spontaneous. So we can say that if your K is greater than 1, then your reaction will be spontaneous. In the reverse way is also true. Similarly, if your K is less than 1, then your delta G naught will be greater than 0 and your reaction will be non-spontaneous. Okay, or is it is spontaneous in the backward direction if it is a reversible reaction. Okay, simple. K is less than 1, then your delta G naught is greater than 1 because delta G naught is equal to minus 2.303 RT log 2.33 RT log K. And if K is less than 1, then your delta G is greater than 0. Okay, and the reaction will go in the backward direction or will be non-spontaneous in the forward direction. Similarly, if it is also 0, then your K is also 0, log K is also 0, and K is equal to 1, means the reaction is at already equilibrium. Clear to you? Okay, very simple. Use that equation, put this multiple values, you will get your thing. Now, what is the relation between degree of association and density? So, this is very important relation. It will help you to solve problem. Okay, this is been put upon this by here so that you can solve your numericals very easily. So, suppose your degree of dissociation is been denoted by alpha for a gaseous compound, and then it can be related to the vapor density. How? So, this is your thing. Alpha is equals to capital D minus small d by small d into y minus 1. Now, what are these terms? If I talk about D, then it is the molar density before dissociation, initial density, I would say. Okay, suppose you have a reaction is going on, reaction is started, then it will have an initial dissociation value, molar density before the dissociation. Then your capital small d will be density after dissociation, okay, or density of the gaseous mixture. And y is the number of moles of products. Then you can write alpha is equals to capital T minus small d by d into y minus 1. And what is the density of gas? Very simple. Take the molecular weight divided by 2. That's the density of your gas. Sometimes it is also called as the vapor density. Now, we can write molecular weight. If you just simplify this further, then it can be written as density of gas or vapor density of gas multiplied by 2. Now, what is this MO? So, it is basically the observed molecular weight, which is equals to D into T, where D is your what? It is your before dissociation molar density, okay, or vapor density multiplied by 2. If you talk about the calculated one, then it is after dissociation multiplied by 2. So MO is the observed molecular weight of the normal one, and MC is the theoretical one. Now we will talk about the Le-Chatelier principle. This is very important topic for you. Why it is important? Because it helps you to solve theoretical problems. Theoretical problems are often asked from this point. So what does it say? So if you are doing any change in the equilibrium, then what it will do? It will cause the system to move in such a way, or it will cause the reaction to move in such a way so that the change that you have done should be minimized, or its effects can be minimized. Clear? So that is called the Le-Chatelier principle. Okay. So very simple phenomena you can understand in this way. So suppose you have a tree in your house, okay, and that is growing. Now what do? If you see that it is growing very much, then you groom it. Okay, so you try to keep that thing in a certain shape. Okay, so consider that shape as an equilibrium stage, and what you cut it always, and that external factor is your growing. So and the internal factor that is driving the force towards equilibrium is your cutting. So similar to that, whenever your equilibrium is disturbed in a certain way, then your reactant move in such a way that your equilibrium can be attained quickly. Okay, so that are the factors that affect the equilibrium. Let us see. So effect of concentration change. So if your iodine reactant or product, then it is relieved by the net reaction in the forward or backward direction that consumes the added substance. Suppose you have added the reactant, then the reaction will move in forward direction so that the reactant can be consumed. If you have added the product, then the reaction will move in the backward direction so that the product can be consumed. Example, suppose you have a reaction A plus B going to C. Now, if we increase the concentration of either A and B, that is your reactant, then the reaction will move to the forward direction so that it can consume your A or B. Similarly, if we increase the concentration of C, the reactant will go in the which direction? In the backward direction so that the C can be consumed, because C is on the reactant side. If you increase this thing, the reaction will go in the backward one. Clear? Okay. Similarly, if we remove C, that means we have removed the product. Now, how will the reaction proceed such that it can minimize that change? So, the removal means concentration of C has been decreased. So, to minimize this change, the reaction will move in which direction? It will move in the forward direction so that more and more C can be formed. Now, if any of the species is in solid or liquid state, its addition does not alter the original equilibrium. Okay. So, if you are say discussing gas, if you are talking about gaseous substances and the substances that you have added is either solid or liquid, then in that case your equilibrium will not be disturbed. Suppose if you talk about sweet substances, then substances cause tooth decay due to fermentation of this produce H plus ions, which it combines with the OH minus ion and shift the equilibrium in the forward direction. So this is your thing. Okay. So this is demineralization. So this is your tooth. Okay. Now what will happen? So this H plus that has been produced, so that will be so this will be demineralized upon the exposure of OH minus. How it is happening? Because suppose your mouth is being acidic, okay, because the food inside you is getting fermented, or the food particles inside you is getting fermented. During fermentation, H plus is released. It is very obvious. Okay, so this is a basic reaction of your organic, that H plus is released during the fermentation. You go and search, you can find it. Now to neutralize that H plus, what will happen? Your tooth will decay. Okay, it will decay so that it can produce OH minus, so that this H plus can be consumed. So this is the way your tooth decays. Now, for that reason, all of your toothpaste that you see that are alkaline in nature. Okay, because they neutralize the acidity that has been created in your mouth due to fermentation. Okay, clear? So in this way, our tooth decay occurs. Next is effect of pressure. So if you are going, if you are at high pressure, then reaction goes from from higher number of moles to the lower number of moles, or from higher volume to the lower volume, and vice versa. So what is being said, that if your pressure is high, then we know that pressure is directly proportional to number of moles that your. So what does it mean? That your number of moles is also high. Okay. So to compensate that, if you just go to that side where number of moles will be low, then your pressure can also be relieved. So what does it mean? Suppose you have increased the pressure. Now to diminish that change, what will happen? The reaction will go in that direction which has lesser number of moles, and lesser number of moles means lesser pressure. Clear? Okay. And same can be said for the volume. Suppose your delta Ng is 0. Okay, if your delta Ng is 0, means the reactants and products has the same number of gaseous molecule, then pressure has no change on the equilibrium. Remember this. Okay, means the equilibrium will not be disturbed by changing the pressure if your reactant and products have the same number of the gaseous molecule. Now, if your reactant molecule is less and your product molecule is greater, because delta Ng is greater than 0, so that means the increase in pressure will go the backward direction, because in the backward direction the number of moles is less, that is on the reactant side. Now if your delta Ng is less than 0, that means your reactant number of moles are greater, and in that case what will happen? The reaction will move in forward direction in increase of pressure. So when you will increase the pressure, and you know that the product is having the lesser number of gaseous molecules, so the reaction will go on to that direction. Then we have effect of temperature. So if you are talking about the exothermic reaction, then increase in temperature moves the reaction in backward direction, and if it is endothermic, then increase in temperature moves the reaction in forward direction. We have seen that. So same thing is written, that equilibrium constant is directly proportional to temperature for endothermic process, and it is inversely proportional to temperature for exothermic process. Next is effect of catalyst. So at catalyst, increase the rate of in forward and backward direction both. So we have seen this. So there will be no effect on the equilibrium or on the equilibrium constant, because since both of them have been reduced by some amount, so there will be no net change that will be seen. Effect of inert gases. So if you are adding the inert gas at constant volume, then there is no change in the active mass. So the active mass means number of moles per unit volume. Since volume is kept constant, so in that case your inert gas that is added has no effect on the reaction. But if it is added at constant pressure, that means your volume is changing. And if you are adding an inert gas at constant pressure, that means your volume is decreasing. So if your volume is decreasing, then the reaction will go in that direction, so that the volume can be increased, that your number of moles is higher. Clear? So same thing is written. So when it is added at constant pressure, that results in increase in the volume, and if your volume is increasing, then your volume is decreasing. So to keep the volume same, your reaction goes to that direction which is higher number of moles. Clear? Now what are the uses of this Lee-Chatterjee principle? So the applications are as follows. So to chemical equilibrium, if we talk about, so this is the most important application of equilibrium or your Lee-Chatterjee principle. So this is basically the process or synthesis of ammonia, and it is very, very important. So for this reaction, your delta H is negative. So if you want to get better yield of ammonia, what are the required condition? You require high pressure because delta H is negative, because there are more number of moles on the reactant side. So if you increase the pressure, so to decrease the pressure, the reaction will go in this direction. Similarly, if your delta H is negative, means it is exothermic and low temperature will favor this reaction in the forward direction. If you take high concentration of reactant, then to consume that reactant, the reaction will move in the forward direction to produce more product. And similarly, if you remove NH3, that is your product, then the reaction will produce in such a way so that the ammonia concentration can be increased. Second, to your physical equilibria. So if you effect on the pressure of effect of pressure on melting point. Suppose this is a equilibrium between ice and water. Now, if you increase pressure on ice, what will happen? What will happen? Because volume of ice is more than of water, so the reaction will go in this direction because we have tried to what? We have tried to increase the pressure. So if your pressure is increased, then the reaction will proceed to decrease the pressure. And you know, volume is inversely proportional to the pressure. So if your volume increases, the pressure will decrease. And in which direction the so if you're applying pressure, then the reaction will go in this direction. Okay, because water has less volume than the ice. Clear? Similarly, if you talk about the solubility of gases, so effect of pressure we have seen in the Henry law constant. So we will just revise it again. So if you are having more and more pressure, means more and more gas is soluble in the solvent. So we said that an increase in pressure will favor the dissolution of gas in the solvent. So therefore, solubility of the gas increases with increase in pressure. So this is in accordance with the Henry's law, which says that M is directly proportional to P. That is, the amount of gas is directly proportional to the partial pressure of the gas. Next is effect of pressure on solubility of solids. So if you are saying that your delta H is positive, then what we will say? That increasing the pressure will make the reaction go in the forward direction. So an increase in pressure always favors the endothermic process, because all of this dissolution of solid in this solvent is a endothermic process, and since it is an endothermic process, therefore increasing the temperature will help the reaction to move in the forward direction. Then now let us do the thing of summing up all the things that were studied till now through a summary. So if I talk about some important features of equilibrium, then equilibrium is always attained in a closed container, and in this case your rate of forward and backward reaction is same, and the concentration of reactant and product become equal. Clear? So this is these are the characteristics or important features for the equilibrium. Further, if we talk about the types of equilibrium, first is solid liquid, that is existing between the solid state and the liquid state, then between liquid and gas, and at last between the solid and gas. So these are the three one. So in this case, your what is happening? Freezing and your melting are occurring. Okay, liquid and gas, that means evaporation and your condensation, and solid and gas means sublimination and solidification. Then talking about the Henry's law, it said that more is the pressure of the gas, more is the solubility of the gas in the solution. After that, we have homogeneous equilibria, which says that if your reactants and products are in the same phase, then we call it as homogeneous equilibria. And if it is are in the different phase, we call it as heterogeneous equilibria. At equilibrium, the rate of forward and backward are equal, so we can write Kf multiplied by the reactants concentration is equal to the Kb multiplied by the products concentration, where K and Kb are the rate constant for forward and backward reaction. So if we just bring this thing here, Kf by Kb, then it is wholly called as equilibrium constant K, and this is equal to the concentration of product raised to the power equal to the stoichiometric coefficient by concentration of reactant raised to the power equal to the stoichiometric coefficient. Next is equilibrium can be expressed in three ways. Constant can be expressed in three ways. First is in terms of concentration, so Kc, so we take the concentration of each of the thing. Then in terms of pressure, then we take the pressure of each of the things, of the gases that we have, not of the solids or liquids. They don't have the pressure. They don't apply pressure on the container of the thing that they are kept in. Then the molar fraction. Okay, so we take the mole fraction instead of the concentration. Now talking about the reaction quotient, if your reaction quotient is greater than the Qc, then the reaction will proceed in backward direction. If it is less than the Kc, then your reaction will proceed in the forward direction. And if it QC is equal to Kc, that your equilibrium constant is equal to the reaction quotient, then the reaction is already at equilibrium. What about the relation? So Kp equal to Kc RT delta Ng, where delta Ng is the change in number of gaseous moles from products to reactants, and same can be said for this. And Kp equal to K chi P, where P is the pressure. Now there is a relation between delta G, that is your Gibbs free energy at standard condition and equilibrium, which is this thing, delta G equal to delta G naught plus 2.303 RT log Q. Now under equilibrium condition, the same number of moles of reactants and products are there. So Q equal to Kp equal to Kc equal to K, and at equilibrium delta G equal to 0. So if you put delta G equal to 0 here and Q equal to K here, you will get delta G naught equal to minus 2.303 RT log K. What are the significance of delta G naught? So if your delta G naught is less than 0, then K is greater than 1 and your reaction is spontaneous in forward direction. If it is greater than 0, that means K is less than 1 and your backward direction is spontaneous. And if it is equals to 0 and K is also equals to 1, then your reaction is at equilibrium. This was the relation between alpha, capital D and small d, where D is before the density before dissociation and small d is density after dissociation, and Y is the number of products, okay, mole products, and alpha is the degree of dissociation. What are the different factors that affect equilibrium? First is concentration. So if you increase the reactant concentration, then reaction will move in forward direction. If you increase the product concentration, then the reaction will move in backward direction, and vice versa. Similarly, if you increase pressure, then the reaction will proceed in that direction which has lesser number of moles, because pressure is directly proportional to the number of moles. If you increase the temperature, then for endothermic reaction, it will be moving in the forward direction, and for exothermic, it will be moving in the backward. What for catalyst? Catalyst has no effect on the equilibrium or on the equilibrium constant, because it enhances the rate of both forward and backward reaction by providing a third route. And then if your inert gas is added at constant volume, then it has no change on equilibrium. If it is added at constant pressure, then the reaction proceeds in such a direction that it has greater number of moles. Thank you. This was all for today's class. We will do the next theory class in the upcoming lectures.